Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Career Revolution podcast. I am thrilled to be speaking to our guest today. He is somebody who blurs the line between mad scientist and creative coach, evil genius, or generative AI strategist. You're going to decide. But Garth Manthe is the creative director and AI pioneer who's been helping creators, agencies, brands, and South Africans unlock what AI can really do on LinkedIn. His work isn't about the next gimmick or shiny tool. It's about building workflows and systems and strategies that help you move faster, makes creativity feel limitless, and the only real boundary is your imagination. Garth moves beyond just the obvious with AI. He created things like desk cocoons, brand partnerships and collaborations we never imagined possible, bread-scented laundry detergent, profile pic makeovers, and breakfasts that make you want to smell through the screen. Garth is a perfect example of the blend of what happens when careers start to shift and change, and the intersection of the future of work and amazing things that can happen when we lean into our own possibility. He talks about his mission being to prove that the future of creativity isn't human versus machine, it's human and machine, working side by side, making things faster, sharper, and way more fun. So without any further ado, let's get the evil genius into studio. Welcome, Garth Manthe. Welcome,
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you. It feels like an intro to like one of the Tonight Show shows. So
I always had this desire to actually be a TV host. I mean, that was my
yeah,
unrealized career. But Garth,
it's never
let's
too
just
late.
jump straight
It's never too late.
career strategy. It's never too late. Yes, I'm living out my
yeah.
passions of TV hosting here. I mean, so many questions for
Mm,
you, but I really want to start backwards and move towards your kind of career journey. And
yeah.
I want you to start telling us about, firstly, the kind of AI skills and questions that we should all be asking. What should we be
Mm,
asking that
that's
we're
a good
not?
question. Yeah, I mean, it's such an interesting place right now, AI. In fact, in all my workshops that I do, probably 3 that I did last week, 3 new workshops, the number one thing that comes up is the unknown of AI. Like,
Mm,
where's it suddenly come from, and where's it going? Is it going to be like this in terms of the excitement and the complete change within a year or in 2 years, or is it going to suddenly drop away? The thing that I think people should know as much as possible is how it integrates into either their role in terms of where they work and what they do, or just in a practical situation. Because AI as a term is now more of a narrative than it is a keyword, because AI has existed for decades. It's been around for a
mm,
long time. We've only just started to label it this because of how much it's entered conversations on social media. So I
mm,
don't I don't think that people should be looking for something different or changing their ways to integrate AI into their lives more. It's going to happen natively, whether you like it or not. And for
mm.
those who think that they don't have it part of their lives, I mean, it already is. If you have a phone, you're using AI. Yeah.
What was your turning point when you
Mm,
completely leaned into it? Now, I love that when we messaged each other on LinkedIn that we'd actually connected back in 2018, which is so bizarre. That's what happens with
mm.
LinkedIn besties. I know that you you went from I'm looking for work to virality on
Mm,
LinkedIn. And I saw that.
yeah.
But talk us through the kind of the career revolutions and the thinking that you were going through as a South African going, guys, what's going on? I need my next
Mm.
contract. I need my next project.
It's a it's both a fun story and a story of survival, which
Yeah.
is I think the survivalist element is what got me to where I am today. And to always tell everybody and being transparent, I'm very fortunate that in a lot of where I am I've had financial backing. This is something that not everybody can do. And
Mm,
I was in a very fortunate position, both financially and in experience in previous work, that I've been able to position myself where I am today. So I just wanted to put that out there. But
mm.
I had, funny enough, I was in your introduction. You had one of your previous guests was Karen Lowe, who
Yes,
was
for
actually, she was my first boss in Cape Town. And in 2013, she ran an agency called Go Forward, and she clearly saw something in me and hired me to work as a social media account manager. And that was the big start of like going from agency to working for some of the biggest brands, to also then being in startups, to ultimately ending in a corporate job, which ended in January 2024. And I then knew I had to start something myself. It was
Mm,
just something I knew I had to do. And there was no way that I ever thought I was going to focus specifically on generative AI. That was always part of the background, the tools and the tech that I've been using since the last decade. It's always been there. But it then got to a stage where I knew the way that I positioned myself wasn't working. And I was getting lost in the noise. And
mm,
the place for me to make more noise was LinkedIn. And I had no listen, I quit my job with no clients, with absolutely nobody. I was very arrogant, to call it what it is. I was very arrogant, thinking that my knowledge and somehow connection to the industry and the marketing and advertising industry in South Africa would have some form of, I don't know,
catch net.
ability to. Yeah, I just thought that somebody was going to say, "Of course you're good at this. Let's hire you." That was definitely
Mm,
not the case. So both arrogant and naive all at the same time was the perfect recipe for finding myself in a situation that I had to fight through. And that also just meant that it was a very good time for me to separate myself from where everyone else was on LinkedIn. And that
mm,
just meant trying to be a little bit more natural in terms of usage of AI from a creative perspective, but then also making
mm,
sure that I'm doing something that no one in the country was doing at the time. And
mm,
it suddenly shifted. Yeah, I mean, I was in a position of earning probably nothing over 6 months straight, like zero, like nothing.
mm.
There was nothing coming in, to suddenly a complete 360 after my very first like mega viral post on LinkedIn. So that's pretty much the survivalist elements of it, but it goes much deeper than that. It goes much deeper.
Absolutely. And that type of having to face what is the relevance that, what am I bringing? What am I doing? And I love the way that you've unlocked there was a little bit of ego. And we're not talking about eight
Mm.
years ago, we're talking about a year and a half ago. So
Mhm.
congratulations to you for seeing it that way and
Thank you.
for, in a way, in the humanness evolving through
Mm.
it.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
thing about creativity and AI, and everyone's worried about being replaced by AI, but you're showing us how AI can enhance your creativity. So, I
Mm.
mean, whether it's from copywriting to creating images or whatever, let's talk about that because that's a big thing
Sure.
that I hear all the
Mm.
time. You were using it as a tool to stand out from the noise, as you said, but clearly
Yeah.
you've got some whack creative ideas sitting, you've got a bank on your own
I
that
do.
you're ready to grow.
Yeah. It's I think there's so much what everyone sees on social media on LinkedIn is very surface level. It is
Mm,
very much what I want to show people, which is also
mm,
the reason why I post certain content on LinkedIn. Is it's all down to strategy. I
yeah.
can't give everything away, but the summary of it is, if you're going to now, the personal branders are going to come after me because of what I say here, but 95% of those who say they're expert on LinkedIn are actually not experts. They're just experts at selling snake oil, which is a case of, I believe there are a lot of people who want to see themselves succeeding on social media, like, I don't even want to name these people on LinkedIn, who get a lot of engagement and a lot of comments and a lot of likes. So it's like a vicious circle. Like, they say they're good, so you must do this, so you can become good, so you can tell others on how to be good. And it's just this vicious circle. But I see nothing tangible coming out of that. And I could in no way I didn't want to be part of that vicious circle. So everything that I created was based on my experience in previous jobs. That's understanding the way that trends work, understanding the way that people enter conversations, the way that people perceive brands, this whole difference between what a brand and branding is, all of that blended together was a very good recipe for then mixing that into the way I use generative AI, which was both in a comedic, but also in a very satirical manner. And it was also very important for me to generate a persona. So the persona was always in the beginning that I'm a dude who started his own business and I'm failing and all this. But then it was a complete shift to being, I was arrogant enough, but also confident enough to say that I was an evil genius, because I knew a way that could both annoy people and also delight people. And that was a balance I never had in the beginning. So LinkedIn is the perfect place to piss people off, which was brilliant in the beginning, and it still is, because there are a lot of I
Good
have a
or
lot of
bad
haters.
engagement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I
Haters.
love the haters.
Yeah.
And but it's also been the thing that has really helped me reach the potential that I've wanted to reach. It's also allowed me to speak to people, like being able to DM the CEO of PepsiCo South Africa is like not something that the normal person would be able to do. But it's also kind of the thing of understanding the way that a platform like LinkedIn works, and then playing towards an angle of getting there without it seeming intentional. It's very strategic. It's also, as my wife likes to say, I'm very sneaky in the way that I do things. But that's also just the way that I have been trained in what I do from a career perspective. And it has allowed me to do things which I never thought possible. And it has also allowed me to reach a revenue stream that was totally out of reach, but now seems like a normal day to day for me.
Amazing. So what you're actually saying is you read the room, you thought quite carefully about who you wanted to be to get the maximum impact in the room. You then read the room, and I mean, your LinkedIn headline has changed. I mean, it went through a stage where it was changing weekly, let alone monthly. The agility in your profile was fantastic. So yeah, I mean, there's even more questions under that to sort of unpack, but just without going into too many nuts and bolts, how much time were you spending on LinkedIn, and proportionately, how did that shift when the business started to pick up? Because your content hasn't dipped. I mean, you're there all the time. You are creating next level amazing things, and now you're offering workshops. So talk to me about the proportion of time. You've given us some great kind of like strategy, like think about who you want to be and make it work. From a time perspective, that's always a big question that people face.
Yeah. Well, the key word here is consistency. And I know it's thrown around a lot, especially on the way that people talk about getting to a level of influence. And in no way do I consider myself an influencer, because there's a definite difference between a creator and an influencer. And I'd like to see myself on the side of being a creator, although I have influenced a lot of others in the way that they generate content or things that they have done from a business side of things. But the time behind that is, and funny enough, I have a weird spreadsheet of like the amount of time versus other things that I do. In the beginning, when I started properly, like full time on LinkedIn in about March 2024, I would probably spend about 4 hours a week on making content. So in total, in like a 5 or 6 day week, it was about 4 hours. Now I probably spend about 15 hours a week. It's between 50 and 17 hours. So it's a lot of time, which is actually between the hours of 8 p.m. and 1 a.m. So I don't do a
Yeah.
lot of it during the day other than community management. And that is what I like to spend a lot of my time on, is responding to comments. I try not to leave any comments. Like I try to,
Unresponded.
yeah, I try and reply to
Mm.
everything as long as I feel like there's a place for doing it. But it's down to the fact that I post it every single day for almost a year, and it eventually started to pay off. And
Mm.
one of my, I like to call him a close LinkedIn friend, Ross Simmons, who also works in the AI
Mm.
space. We kind of met up at a stage where both of us were finding our feet in terms of how we generated content and the results that we were getting, and we were almost in the exact same position. Now we are. He has more followers than me, because he's just in this like amazing space of being a great teacher in the AI space, and he's very well known for what he does. And I think he probably grows by like 1,000 followers a week now, which is insane. But it's also a case that we are not even competitors. That which also
Mm.
makes it super interesting, because he would post, I would post, we would then say what worked and what. And now we don't do that anymore because we don't need to. But at the same
Mm.
time, I think it was having someone like that in order to like model of the way we're doing things and seeing what worked for him, and then what worked for me, is a way that we both have a recipe now, which I would consider a sense of RP. And
Mm.
if there's anyone that is willing to get to that point, I basically ask people to pay me and I tell them how to do it.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, but it's not on a personal branding level. It's more a case of like, how do you use the right tools, a tech stack, to get to a
Yes.
stage where you can separate yourself. That's the most
Yes.
important thing.
Yes. 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 I see that. So having a running mate, for want of a better word, that you could kind
Mm,
of bounce analytics off in the early days, how much attention were you focusing on? This one had 100 likes, this one had 400.
mm,
Like, how much were you
yeah,
unpacking those early day posts and reiterating from them?
a lot. I want people to realize as well that um, the metrics you see on the front end of LinkedIn, the number of likes versus comments versus reposts, are not an indication of the amount of success or revenue that someone's earning. Not at all. In fact, I
Mm.
know people who get very little engagement, but they do very well through LinkedIn because they just have the right level of people speaking to them. Now,
Mm.
for me, I challenge myself because I set up a sense of gamification. If I
Yeah.
didn't like gamify the whole thing, it didn't seem like a way for me to track success. And that was ultimately focusing on ranking. So Favicon is the one tool that is used globally for determining
Mm.
rankings on LinkedIn. There is no other tool that I'm aware of that can do that.
Mm.
And I started tracking there when I think in South Africa I was probably like number like 500 odd in the country. And I remember saying to my parents, like, this seems ridiculous, but if there are X amount of million people, clearly this is like a good place to be. And I mean, at some stage I was number 2 or number 3. And that meant a lot to me a couple months ago. Now it's just a vanity metric, which is good to use to some extent in talking about my personal brand. But
Mm.
the average amount of reach that I had when I started was probably in a space of 15 to 20,000 impressions a week, and
Mm.
now it may even be between 200 and 400,000 a week,
Mm.
depending on how well something performs. But I'm now entering the 10 million impression mark for the last 365 days, so it does make a difference when you're consistent.
Absolutely. My goodness. What do your parents think about what you do? I love that you mentioned them.
They don't really know what I do, which is fair because I don't I haven't really broken it. They understand the coaching and the teaching aspect of it, which is very
Yeah,
much part of my entire family basis. My wife is a teacher and has been for her entire career, and it's something that I've had a passion for and love doing. So they get that. It's a case of the technological side of going, where does it fit in? So
yeah.
they do love what I do because they can see how passionate I am about it, but there is still a
Mm,
lot of explaining to be done because it is something that if it's not part of your daily routine and not part of your normal life, then there's no way I can explain how what a large language model is and why that's
mm,
relevant to a certain business. So they
mm.
love what I do. They back me 100% with everything, and they've seen me through my absolute worst, which is crying so hard I can't even talk, to a point now where I have, shed tears just by like pure happiness. So they have seen it all.
And you've had, work celebrated at Cannes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, strangely enough, that did happen. I don't know. I don't know how we were invited. Someone that was part of the organization that presented this work,
Yeah,
they're called ACT. They emailed Mark Sharman at Retroviral and said,
yeah.
"We saw this. Would you please can you
You
submit? We
wanna
would love for you to be part of it." And then we were
mm,
selected and had that work showed there. So it wasn't actual work that was done. It was purely a concept. And
yes,
at this stage, yeah, we don't talk about it too much because of some things that happened in the past, but it was something that
okay.
happened, and I'm very proud of the fact that it took a silly trend and turned it into something that at least got some showcase. So yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Has your I mean, I mentioned Cannes, but yeah,
Mm,
has the have you really gone global? I mean, you've gone massive in South Africa, Africa. Give us an
mm.
idea of what that reach potentially has translated to. Is that something that
Yeah.
you've measured? Is that something that you've looked at?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have a network of people from the coaching side and client side, ranging all the way from the US, the UK, Australia, other parts of Europe, other parts of Africa, from Kenya all the way to Nigeria. And the one thing I don't do, and I'm not very good at doing, is like a case study of things because
Mm,
there's a time and a place for doing it, and for a lot of it I don't get to share the work that I've done with people because it belongs to them, and it's not I can't do anything from a
yeah.
legal side of sharing it. um, but the work that I am most proud of and very fortunate to be part of is when Mark Sharman asked me to be a partner with him with Retroviral AI Lab.
Mm,
And we've done some amazing work for South African brands, which would be considered global brands, I guess.
yes.
But that for me is one of the absolute highlights. And it's a story all on its own and how we got there, which if you're happy for me to
Mm.
tell you, I would
I
I would love
want
to
you
tell
to
everyone
tell
as
us.
well. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
go for it.
The sh- the short of it is that Mike DM'd me. That's it. Mike sent me a
The beauty
DM
of
on
the
LinkedIn and
DM.
said, "Yeah, I mean, I wish there was a sexier story, but it's a story nonetheless of I was in Hermanus in my mom and dad's house, and Mark and I had spoken before many years ago when I had a podcast, and he was doing work for Rocker Mamas at that stage, and he was like Mark for me has always been a bit of like a celebrity, like always been a bit of
Yes.
a rock star in the industry because of the work that he had done for previous brands. And I don't know why I never said yes or did anything in there, but we kind of lost any form of contact from that day onwards. And then finally he reached out because he had clearly been lurking on my LinkedIn and watching me. And he just sent me a DM and said, this is a brand new space. No one's really doing it. Would I be keen? And I didn't even respond before I ran downstairs and said to my mom and dad, I was like, what do I say? And we hadn't even properly discussed the details, but because we both had the kind of the excitement to do it, and he had the vision for doing it. It happened very quickly, and we've done so much, just the two of us, which is also what makes it so special. And I was very, very lucky to find Mark at that stage, because he's also given me a bit of a leg up in being able to reach out to different organizations. And he's also just I mean, he's like my spirit animal as a human, because he's got so much energy and he's so positive. And if anything, he has spurred me on to do more in this space. And we've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and I just hope that we keep doing more.
Yeah, and I love how the collaboration and the connection with the right person who was kind of always there, but then it's not like Mike was new to you, but something shifted in you going through this. I talk about the hero's journey in career strategy work. It's that Greek mythology of you leave to go and slay the dragon, and you end up going through peaks and troughs in the discovery of yourself. The dragon is within, it's not an external dragon, and then you come back wiser, stronger, owning your journey. And you've given us an insight into that, Garth, and yet along the way it's a little bit like you think you're going to meet someone new, but there's somebody that was always there, someone that was always alongside, somebody that, it was super socialized into climb that ladder. I mean, there's never been a ladder, and work hard. It's about working hard according to who? Yourself, not being defined by someone else. And we think that something is out there, but it's actually in here, and it's closer to home than what we thought. And that's actually the career revolution in a way. What are your thoughts on that? Does that...
Yeah, I am an advocate of the career change, or the career pivot, or career revolution for any person. In fact, I get so many DMs asking on like a mentoring space, which I 100% always make sure I engage in, because it was so important to me to have people like that in the past. And it was the one thing which helped me see the light when, as cliche as it sounds, as dark as it can get. And it got very dark, extremely dark. And I knew that the people who were my mentors, including one of my ex-bosses, the CEO at the time of Dynamo, when I worked at Dynamo, we were once never speaking, and eventually we got talking again. And he was the one person who probably gave me the best level of inspiration to move into doing something on my own. And for that, anybody who obviously looks at that situation of, do what makes you happy. I do think that there are a lot of caveats in the situation of don't do what I did. Don't quit and not have any job on the side or any clients, because that's just not a strategy that I would advocate for anyone. But if there is something that you have set up and there's an opportunity to do it, then I mean, again, another cliche. You only live once, and if that opportunity is there, then take it, and go full swing. So I've really, I do feel like my story is probably way better than a lot of other people, because of how fortunate and kind of blessed and lucky I've been in the spaces that I've worked. But I do also like to see that the thing that has led me to where I am today is the spaces that made me the most unhappy, because that's terrible bosses. That's like corporates that could hire to murder. It's those types of things. It's those types of things that I hated at the time. But at the same time, I'm so glad that those happened, because I wouldn't be in this position today without it.
Yeah. You're very generous in saying that you were fortunate, that you had backing and so forth. And there's a functional reality about that, right? Which I accept. But I really want to put to you, Garth, that the courage to let yourself go into that really dark place of
Mm.
existential crises, because that's what it is.
Mhm.
When no one wants to work with us, when everything we do gets stonewalled,
Mm.
when there just simply feels like there is no way forward, but waking up to face the same reality for yet another day, you really let yourself go there so that you could come
Mm.
out with the, rainbow in the background behind you and all the other things. So you did go, you let yourself go to that place where you're going to slay something, because I think you knew that deep down inside, you had to be completely honest. The support that you
Mm.
described to me feels like it was, you had your folks, you had your wife saying it's okay. You had this kind of
Mm.
support in your honesty coming out. The light at the end of the tunnel wasn't, you weren't going to sell your soul and just do anything for the sake of it.
Mm-mm.
And that bargaining with
Mm.
the evil, it was like a war with your own evil genius. You had to go to the
Mm.
depths of what's next, the most amazing things to come out. And
Mm.
is that something that we can repeat? Is that something that we can put a template into the world and say, everyone, and go do this? Absolutely not, because we're
Yeah.
all in
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
stages, what
I
have
don't
you.
want,
But
I would never want somebody to
no,
see what
no,
I
no,
have
no.
as a template. Yeah.
But that darkness sometimes it could be the person who's in the corporate world who knows that this is
Mm.
sucking the life out of them, but they keep the
Yeah.
job and they face the darkness every weekend until they can make the shift or the change. It looks
Mm.
different for everyone. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be unpaid for 6 months to face the darkness. Facing the
Gosh, no.
darkness sometimes is just doing meaningless work that makes you
Mm.
feel like shit. But
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
your what
Uh,
I want to say, the courage and tenacity that you had, thank goodness you stuck with it. I'm so glad
mm.
no bank came along to say, give you some cushy this, do that, to just tide you over. I'm so glad that there was an absolute um vacuum that you then were
Yeah.
able to go and work through. I want to ask, just as we start rounding off, a few more questions, if I may. What
Mm.
you've faced the good, the bad, and the ugly, as you say. You speak about haters. You get more DMs from people, but you respond to the people who are looking for support, help, and
Mm.
mentoring. Because I agree. I mean, when somebody has the courage to reach out to the somebody that they see doing something amazing on LinkedIn, you want to honor that, right? It's like
Mm.
they get to be
Sure.
heard. But what advice would you have in terms of South Africans who go, yeah, LinkedIn is just a job board, or I don't know, LinkedIn's not relevant, or my boss is watching me on LinkedIn, or what? I know what you're going to
Mm.
say, but I'd love you to say it to the people listening
Yeah.
who are just watching and they're not doing anything. They're not taking any action. They're not finding their own
Mm.
inner courage, bravery. What can you help with that?
A few things. I think the first one, as a almost like a terms and conditions, is
Mm,
you have to still be very hyper aware of what you say. If you are still
mm,
employed and you do have some form of angst or, things that you want to air out, LinkedIn's a terrible place for doing that. I know because I've done it and I got in trouble many times for doing it. But it's also the one thing that you can translate into storytelling. So
mm,
if you consider that there's a big element of storytelling, that's like um, model number one to keep
mm.
aside. Model number two is the fact that I don't believe there's anyone using LinkedIn that isn't trying to make any money. That's my perception of LinkedIn, is that
Mm,
I can't imagine someone waking up and going onto LinkedIn. And this is the brutal honesty. If I was making enough money, I wouldn't go on
wouldn't be
LinkedIn.
there.
I, I wouldn't be there. I wouldn't want to be on any social media at this stage. Not the way the world is going right now. But
Mm,
I feel like I've gotten to the stage where I've built up this amazing community of people the same people every day, who comment and tell me how they're the ones who, well, I'm the one that makes them go back on LinkedIn. Like, that is a big part of a community side that I thrive off of. But
mm,
if it were a situation where I didn't need to be there, I probably wouldn't be there. So Model number 2 is to understand the audience. The audience on
Read.
LinkedIn,
Mm,
they're there to, like, there obviously are people looking for jobs, but the people who are willing to give you money for what you're good at doing, they are there. They're all there. And
mm,
it's not a CEO necessarily. It's not a CMO or a head role or an executive role. It's the people in between that basically are there to engage with you, to get you the right kind of engagement space, to then ask somebody, or they ask you, can we pay
mm,
you to do X and Y? Instagram is obviously, all these platforms are very good for their own space, but
mm.
LinkedIn is a business centric environment for those level of social conversations, as long as
Yeah.
it's done where you're able to separate yourself, which is like the last model. And you and I spoke about this before, but I want to touch, the main thing I want to touch on is, if you see anybody overselling or trying to sell you this dream of becoming a personal brander by doing X and Y on LinkedIn, by managing to help you get reach and all these likes and comments and stuff like that, it's just shallow vanity metrics that creates a vicious circle of nothingness. If you
Mm,
want to be seen and heard and recognized, you have to do something different. It's
mm,
the reality of a crazy social environment. We can all say and do the same things. That's why there's a lot of copy and paste content on LinkedIn. Goodness gracious, the
mm,
amount of the same things posted over, and then people get like 2,000 likes for it, and they're like, I am an expert. You are no expert, because if the other person did it and they got the same amount of likes, all you've done is just said the same thing and created an echo chamber. The people
mm,
who are really out there doing it is, if you go and look at somebody like Ken Cheng, a
mm.
UK guy who's a comedian,
Yeah.
mad satirical content that has probably, some people have thought that he's insane for talking about prostitutes and cocaine and stuff like that, but it's strategy. He's
Yeah.
been able to grow his account by close to like 200,000 followers in probably a
Yeah.
year. And I know it's done amazing things for him. Even though I don't know him personally, I can see what it's done. And so if you can purely understand the fact that it's a social channel to engage, you know who's listening, you know who's watching, but you also then
Mm,
know that you have to show what you're good at, how good you are at doing it, but never, and this is the number one rule, and I have this for every coaching session I have, do not post anything to make yourself seem interesting. Post
yeah.
something that makes it interesting to somebody else. That
Mm,
that is the, like, you would never go to a bar and constantly brag about everything you do, because it's going to just turn people off and think that you're a bit of a dick. But
yeah.
if you are bringing something to the table, the literal table that is interesting, i.e., if somebody pulled a hamster out of their pocket and said they keep their pet hamster in there and they're feeding them, that's interesting. And then you're like, okay,
Yeah.
why? Why are you doing that? That is not something that you learn overnight. So once
Yeah.
you get to that point and you understand what consistency does to speak to an audience so that you are saying things that are interesting to them, then you can find the strategy and how you engage, because that level of engagement that you then start to really nail is a sense
Mm,
of revenue that you potentially may not have seen before.
mm. And in your case, you did that organically, without
Mm.
an engagement pod, without a bunch of people that aren't even in
No.
your same geo space commenting. And we've all seen that. I mean, we've all seen that happen. I mean, that
Oh
talk
yeah.
about an echo chamber. Um, Absolutely phenomenal. Garth, you spoke about the thing that you're most proud of, the work that you're proud of. I'd love to know, in the comments, you've interacted with people that you would never have normally met all around South Africa. You've put out incredible
Mm.
posts. You've had some interesting discussions with people, and I mean, I must say, I applaud the fact that you always are on the side of positivity, a satirical positivity, but it's always
Mm.
there. You know, you're not one of the naysayers, and you've never
Mm.
complained. You don't. Well, when you've been doing this stuff, you don't necessarily
Yeah.
complain, but it just brings up
Well.
such interest
Mm.
in people's responses. What's moved you in this journey? What's one thing that we didn't see that kind of made you go, oh, what? What felt heavy, what felt light, or what was something that just shifted
I
things
think
in a weird way?
yeah, the heavy load is repeating success. So the thing which was both the biggest and most enlightening thing for me, but also the scariest thing, which a lot of people, which I don't talk about. I don't talk about necessarily my emotions anymore on LinkedIn, because as much as I know that it's great as a content, like theme, as a topic, I've moved beyond that space. If anyone really wants to know, then I'll tell you on WhatsApp and not on LinkedIn anymore. That's just not something that I want to do. But
Yeah,
the one thing is, if you find a way of, like, my most viral post, went insane. It's the one thing that changed my life, was my WWF post from last year around Jaguar.
yeah.
And once that happened, I went, what if I can't do it again? Does that mean that,
Mm,
like, I'll never be seen or heard? And if that happens, like, do I just disappear? That type of thing is, I'll be the first one to say, is I have an awful addiction to using a channel like LinkedIn.
yeah,
It has got to the point where, and it's insane to say, I have missed some of the things my son has done because I was looking at my phone.
yeah.
But to take, and I always say to my wife, is, I know there are a lot of things that could be missed, but for me, the importance of my own goals and my own dream is something that I don't want to miss either. So I have taken
Mm,
on the sacrifice of doing things where I potentially don't get the sleep that I should be getting.
mm,
I have probably been the most unhealthy I have been my forever, but it's because I've weighted the balance on trying to succeed in a new career path, that I haven't
mm,
been able to balance other things, and those
mm,
are very hidden. Like, it's a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. If that seems like I have the perfect life,
mm,
is not true. It's But it's also a thing that allows me to then realize it's okay to step back. It's okay to suck sometimes, but
mm,
those are very much the elements that I'm glad I get to have, but it's also not stuff that
mm.
I'm going to publicly talk about, um,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's just not part of my content pillars that make sense right now to talk about.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for saying that.
Mm,
Yeah, there's so
yeah.
much wisdom and lesson and so much that you've shared here. And just to round off, there are a lot of people who might be listening to this, watching this, feeling as if they're late to the AI party in whatever field,
Mm,
conservative careers into creative careers. What piece of advice do you have for that? Because it's shifting and changing faster than we can literally
mm,
blink an eye at. In a way, I'm sort of wrapping this in your career revolutionary tip for our
yeah.
listeners and for the audience. What would you say about, well, you know me, it's never too late.
Mm.
But
It
what's
isn't. It's
your,
not. It's not. It's not too
yeah.
late. The best tip I can give anybody is, if you are serious about bringing change to speed, cost efficiencies, inspiration, creativity, you need
Mm,
to be more comfortable with finding a tech adoption in your life that fits in within the way that you work. That's the only
yeah.
way that you're going to find the successful path with how to use it, because you can't copy and replicate where others, i.e., what I have done. There are a lot of people who try and clone what I do on LinkedIn, a lot.
Mm,
And for some
mm,
it works to some extent. For some, I don't know. They probably think that if they copy what I do, it'll work. But you have to find what works. Again, another cliche. You have to find what works for you using
mm,
any form of generative AI. but you also need to start kind of looking at what is happening in the news, in the trends, what companies like Google and Meta and all these other generative AI companies are doing. Because it's not just about making pictures. As much as I make pictures for LinkedIn, what I do in coaching and in workshops is far greater than that. It goes very, very deep in making things work faster and more efficiently. So that number one tip is just keep your eyes and ears open and only do what makes you feel comfortable and what you can see makes work for you. Replicating or copying what others are doing is just not a good way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. If it weren't for AI, I know I said last question, but I've just got to sneak this in. If it weren't for AI in a weird kind of parallel universe, what do you think you'd be doing right now?
Goodness. I'd probably be doing what I initially set out to do. So I initially set out to my core focus in everything I've done previously is specifically in brand strategy. So think you do on a strategic level to make people feel something about your brand, right? Set up these programs like a fitness program. That was it. You don't need AI to do that. You just need to understand human behavior, insights, and then you can type it all out. Where I would be is I'd probably be back in a corporate job. It's the absolute truth. I would be back in a corporate job because I wouldn't be able to operate the same way I operate now. I'm very, very fortunate that I can have many clients over a very short period of time, and I can manage them all, and I can do what I need to do because of these tools that I have. If I didn't have them, working one particular job and doing what you have to do to keep your performance up, then I would be there. I would definitely be there. But
How rad is that?
I
mean, to think.
Yeah. I can't even think about it because of how I wasn't built for corporate. As much as I can say terrible things about corporate environments, which is true. A lot of people would agree. I am also guilty of not being the right person to deliver on their expectations. So I love telling everybody that if I'm going to hate any boss, it's to hate myself. That's it. So I'm very glad that I get to send sick notes, like a sick note to myself and say I'm not feeling well, I don't want to work today. Then I get to do that. Or if I get to drop my son off at school every single day and pick him up when I want to and take him out for an ice cream, then I can do that too. But that is something that took a lot of time and effort to get to. And I'm just very thankful that there are smarter people in this world that can make technology that already exists like this, because without them, it's going to sound very dark, but my wife was always very afraid that she'll come back home and see me hanging in the garage. I don't want to end off on the darkest note, but that is the absolute truth. There have been these additions to my life from how I want to work and what I work with and who I work with that has allowed me to just actually wake up and feel happy again.
We can take the dark. Careers can be really dark, and career revolution is not always about fun goods. It's dark before the light, and it's always some kind of explosion or blast, and sometimes that's tiny, sometimes the whole world gets to watch and see. Garth Manthe, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for everything. We're going to follow you on, clearly, LinkedIn, but what can we do to support you? You've got some workshops coming up. We're going to drop a whole bunch of links in the comments on those. Anything that everyone listening right now can do to get behind you and support you? What would you like us to do?
If anyone wants to reach out, my website's currently like a disaster, so don't even go to my website. You can, there's nothing on there really. So the core channel is, if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, you can either DM me there or send a meeting request directly on LinkedIn. But the core focus between now and the remainder of the year is I'm very lucky that September and October is fully booked for private coaching. I only have November left. I don't do anything in December on private coaching side, unless it's for somebody famous. But that's just a joke. But it's specifically if there are agencies or big, small, corporate, any size business that's looking to either half day, full day, a whole month, or in some cases, like I do, 3 whole months with businesses to be the AI champion, to incorporate AI both creatively, strategically into your business, then those are things that I'm still doing throughout the remainder of the year.
Fantastic, wonderful. And don't stop teaching. I love that fundamentally underneath the layers of your generative strategy and brand and curiosity sparking that you're getting us to engage with is a fundamental desire to help and to teach. And that I did not know until I had you on the Career Revolution podcast. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Garth. We'll be seeing you on those shiny streets of AI in LinkedIn.
Definitely. Thank you.